My dad secretly took out over $100 thousands in loans in my name and used my med school living funds to pay his own bills, left me struggling to eat, and now wants me to lie to my mom. Now I feel betrayed and really want to protect my future. I honestly don't even know where to begin with this because the more I think about it, the more unreal it feels. I'm a first-year medical student now, and up until recently, I thought I had a pretty clear understanding of my financial situation. I went straight into med school after finishing undergrad this past year, and like most students, I knew I had taken out loans. But beyond that, I didn't really question anything, because my dad handled all of it. Ever since I turned 18, my dad has been in charge of everything related to my finances. Tuition, loans, FAFSA, you name it, he managed it. He even had my FAFSA login. At the time, it didn't seem strange. He used to be the president of a brokerage firm, and in our family, he's always been the one people trusted when it came to money. I trusted him too, completely. Why wouldn't I? During undergrad, I knew I had some loans, but I also believed my parents were covering most of my tuition. That's what I had always been told. Things started to change around my junior year, though. Our family's financial situation took a downturn, and I decided to get a part-time job. At first, it was just supposed to be for fun money, something extra, so I didn't have to ask my parents for every little thing. But it didn't stay that way. Pretty quickly, that fun money became survival money. My parents still covered my rent, and my loans supposedly covered tuition, but everything else, food, toiletries, utilities, basic living expenses, came out of my pocket. It was hard, but I felt guilty asking my parents for more, especially knowing things were tight for them. Then there were the times my dad asked me for money. It would usually be small amounts, $100 here, $200 there. He'd call and say something needed fixing at the house, or that my mom's wedding ring needed a repair. Every time, he'd ask me not to tell her because he felt ashamed. I never questioned it. I trusted him, and honestly, I felt like it was the least I could do. He never paid me back, but I didn't push it. I figured it wasn't a big deal. Fast forward to now, medical school. I moved to a new place, and my rent actually dropped to almost half of what it used to be. My parents were still covering it, so I thought that meant I'd have a bit more breathing room financially, especially since I couldn't work anymore due to the demands of school. I assumed I'd at least have the same amount of money to live on as before. I was wrong. Instead, I was given $100 a month. That was supposed to cover everything: food, toiletries, any personal expenses. I don't have a car, and I live in a pretty isolated area near my school. Getting groceries meant relying on roommates to drive me. And $100 a month? That barely lasts a week, let alone an entire month. I started cutting corners wherever I could. Skipping meals, stretching food as long as possible, buying the cheapest options available. Eventually, I had no choice but to start going to the campus food pantry. Even then, it wasn't enough. Between the stress of med school and not eating properly, I ended up losing over 25 pounds since August. It wasn't just physical, it started affecting me mentally too. I was constantly anxious, exhausted, and honestly, ashamed. I didn't understand how things had gotten this bad. I thought this was just how it had to be. Eventually, it got to a point where I couldn't ignore it anymore, and I started seeing a therapist on campus. During one of our sessions, I told her about my financial situation, how little I had to live on, how I was struggling just to eat. She looked at me and asked a simple question: "Have you actually looked into your loans?" I hadn't. Not really. I knew I had loans covering tuition, but I never dug deeper than that. Again, my dad handled everything. I trusted him. She encouraged me to check. So I did. And that's when everything fell apart. I found out that my loans weren't just covering tuition. They were also meant to cover my living expenses. Around $16,000 per semester. When broken down monthly, that's roughly $2,000 a month that I should have been receiving as a refund. But I wasn't. That money was being deposited into my dad's checking account, and I was only getting about $1,150 a month at best, and recently only $100. I remember just staring at the numbers, trying to make sense of it. I felt stupid. How had I not noticed this sooner? How had I let someone else have that much control over my finances without ever questioning it? The realization hit me all at once. The money that was supposed to help me live, money I would have to pay back one day, wasn't going to me, and I didn't know why. I don't know if my dad used it because our family was struggling. I don't know if he thought he'd pay it back eventually. I don't know if he even realizes the impact this has had on me. I came home for a couple of days over spring break, and honestly, I thought it would just be a short break from the stress. My therapist had encouraged me to talk to my parents about my situation, specifically about how I didn't have enough money to eat properly. It felt embarrassing but also necessary. I couldn't keep going the way I had been. So during dinner that night, I brought it up. I tried to keep it calm and reasonable. I told them I was struggling, that $100 a month wasn't enough to cover food and basic necessities. I even suggested increasing it to $200 a month, which still felt low, but I didn't want to push too hard. I mentioned that I had been looking into my financial aid and saw that I was supposed to be receiving a certain amount each month from my loans for living expenses, and that those funds were being deposited into my dad's checking account. That's when everything shifted. My mom looked completely blindsided. She had no idea I had loans specifically meant for living expenses. She also didn't know about this separate bank account my dad had. You could see the confusion on her face immediately, and it made my stomach drop. My dad, on the other hand, immediately started playing dumb. He said he didn't know what account I was talking about. I pulled up the email showing that the loan refund had been deposited into his account. He glanced at it, then changed his story, said the deposit never actually hit his account. My mom questioned that, clearly not buying it, and then he pivoted again. Suddenly, he claimed that he had declined the deposit to keep my loan amounts lower. That made even less sense. I remember saying, if I don't need the loan, then why did we take it out in the first place? It felt like I was talking in circles, and no matter what I said, he just kept dodging, deflecting, changing the narrative. We went back and forth like that for what felt like forever. My mom kept trying to understand, but eventually she just stopped. She got up and started cleaning up dinner, like it was too much to process in that moment. And honestly, I don't think she wanted to believe what was being implied. That's when I decided to show him something else. I pulled up my credit report through Experian and showed him the $100,000 in private loans I had discovered. Loans taken out in 2024 with a 16% interest rate that I had absolutely no knowledge of. He looked at it, then tapped me on the shoulder and said quietly, "I'll explain everything later." That moment alone made my chest tighten. I already knew something was very, very wrong. After dinner, he followed me downstairs. It was just the two of us, and for the first time, he stopped pretending. He admitted everything. All of it. He told me that the loans meant for my living expenses. Money that was supposed to go toward my food, books, transportation, basic survival had been used to help cover rent, yes, but also to pay their bills. Not just occasionally. Consistently. The rest of the money, the part that should have been supporting me while I was in one of the most demanding programs of my life, had been redirected to keep their finances afloat. And then there was the $100,000. He admitted he had taken out those private loans as well, using my name, to help cover their expenses over the past couple of years. My mom, he said, had no idea. None. I just stood there, trying to process it. It felt like everything inside me went numb. The stress, the hunger, the weight loss, the constant anxiety I had been living with, it suddenly had a reason. And that reason was standing right in front of me. He looked at me and said he was sorry. That he had been trying to hold everything together. That things had gotten out of control. And then he asked me to lie. He asked me to go back upstairs and tell my mom that I had just been confused about my loans. That everything was fine. That there was nothing to worry about. He didn't want her to find out. I remember just staring at him, not even knowing what to say. Part of me felt sick. Another part of me felt angry in a way I had never felt before. And then there was this overwhelming sense of betrayal. Not just because of the money, but because I had trusted him completely. I had let him handle everything because I believed he had my best interests at heart. I believed he was protecting me. After everything he told me downstairs that night, I don't think I slept at all. My mind just kept replaying the conversation over and over, like I was trying to find some version of it that wasn't real. But every time, it ended the same way, with him admitting he had used my loans, my name, my future, to keep things afloat. The next morning, he acted almost normal, like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't just had a conversation that completely shattered my trust in him. And then he started trying to reassure me. He swore he was going to pay me back. He told me that everything would be okay, that this was temporary, that there were things in motion that would fix everything. According to him, my parents have been waiting on a $250,000 tax return from the government tied to the sale of a property from 4 years ago. He said it's tied up in some kind of legal process, but once it comes through, it'll solve a lot of their problems. Then there's the other thing, the $1.5 million annuity. He said he made an investment years ago that was supposed to pay out last year, but the company went under and is now refusing to pay. Apparently, that's also tied up in legal battles, both at the state and federal level. According to him, once that situation is resolved, there will be more than enough money to fix everything he's done. But the thing is, I don't know if I believe any of it. And I hate that I even have to say that. This is my dad. This is someone I trusted with everything, my finances, my future, my sense of security. And now I'm sitting here questioning whether anything he says is even real. Every explanation feels like another layer of uncertainty. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. But after all the lies, how am I supposed to tell the difference? What scares me the most is the timeline. In 3 years, I'll be a resident doctor. I should be focusing on getting through med school, building my career, preparing for the future. Instead, I'm terrified that I'm going to come out of this buried under debt that I didn't even knowingly take on. Debt that was supposed to help me survive is now something I might be trapped paying off for decades. And I'm not the only one. I talked to my brother yesterday, and hearing his side of things made everything feel even worse. He told me that Dad has done similar things to him, not with student loans, since he's not in grad school, but with money he earned himself. One summer during undergrad, my brother made about $10,000 and our dad borrowed it. Promised to pay it back. Never did. He also opened a credit card in my brother's name without telling him. My brother had to cancel it once he found out. That's when it really hit me. This isn't new behavior. It's just the first time I've seen the full extent of it. At this point, I'm almost certain my parents are in serious debt. I know my dad's credit score is bad. He's admitted that much, which probably explains why he's been using me and my brother as financial lifelines. But what I can't understand is where all the money is actually going. It's not like they're living extravagantly. Their cars are barely holding together. Appliances in the house are broken and haven't been replaced. There's no sign of luxury, no obvious explanation for where hundreds of thousands of dollars could have gone. We live in a multi-million-dollar house, yes, but that almost makes it worse. They could sell it, downsize, and be completely fine. My brother even asked him directly if he was gambling or making reckless investments. Dad denied it. Of course he did. But at this point, I don't know what to believe anymore. And then there's the part that's tearing me apart the most, my mom. She still doesn't know. She has no idea about the loans, the accounts, the money being taken in my name. She has no idea that my dad has been hiding all of this for years. And I'm terrified of what will happen if she finds out. I'm genuinely scared it could destroy their marriage, and I don't want that. I don't want to be the reason everything falls apart. At the same time, I feel like I'm being asked to carry a secret that isn't mine to carry. My dad wants me to lie for him, to protect him, to pretend I misunderstood everything. And part of me wants to do it because he's my dad, because he's almost 80, because his health isn't great, because I don't want to see him suffer. But another part of me is screaming that this isn't okay. My brother and I even talked about what his plan B might be, and it's a thought I can't shake. We're both worried that he might just not fix any of this. That he's counting on life insurance to cover everything after he's gone. That instead of facing the consequences, he's hoping it will all just disappear. And that terrifies me. Because that means this isn't just a temporary problem, it's something that could define my financial future for decades. I feel completely stuck. I don't want to report him to the police. I don't want to destroy my family. I don't want my parents to end up struggling or losing everything. But I also can't keep letting this happen. I can't keep sacrificing my future, my health, my stability, just to protect him from the consequences of his actions. For the first time in my life, I want to choose myself. I want to tell him to stop. To take back control of my finances. To protect what little I have left before it gets worse. But even that feels impossible. Because no matter what I do, it feels like someone is going to get hurt. What should I do now? Do I confront my mom and risk breaking my family, or keep my dad's secret and protect him? How can I take back control of my finances and stop him from using my name? Should I trust that he'll repay me, or assume the worst? Is there any way to fix this without legal action? How do I protect my future without destroying my parents' lives? Any kind of advice is welcomed. I just outside perspectives of what can be done so that I can protect my future, also not let my parents' life ruin.